Welcome back to Straight TV, where the name says it all. We go straight to the heart of the matter. We don't hold back. But if you're new here, go ahead and familiarize yourself by listening to our past episodes because we've been taking some serious deep dives lately. And to those who've been with me from the jump, thank you for sticking around. Thank you for coming back. Because this topic is going to knock your socks off. Today we are talking about the ancient, ever-present, and shockingly effective phenomena known as the witch hunt. No, I don't just mean literal witch hunt like the old stories of medieval times. I'm talking about any scenario, past or present, where a person or group is targeted, hounded, or outright destroyed by rumor, by fear, or blind fanaticism. And if you've listened to my last few episodes, especially the ones on mob mentality, fear-based decision-making, and modern cancel culture, you know, I've been hinting that all these things are really branches of the same twisted tree. Well, today we're going to zoom out and see the whole forest, a twisted forest. Let's hold for a minute. Let's start by asking, why has the witch hunt endured for so long across cultures, across religions, and society? Because it's not just some relic of medieval superstition. It goes back even further. We can see examples even in the Bible. Think about mobs accusing others of heresy or calling for punishment. We can see it in ancient civilizations in medieval Europe, colonial America, if anyone recalls the Salem witch trials, and we can see it right here, right now, in modern social media culture. One reason the witch hunt endures is that it appeals to some pretty raw human emotions. Fear, for one. Fear is a powerful motivator. If you recall my episode on the power of mass fear, we talked about how an entire community can be whipped into a frenzy just by the rumor of a threat. And once you label that threat a witch, a heretic, or a traitor, the fear multiplies because there's suddenly a name and a face to blame for everything that's happening. The second big factor, emotion over reason. We humans can be led by strong, passionate feelings, outrage, suspicion, anger, and those feelings can override our logical, critical thinking. When we are in that flight or fight mode, we don't pause to ask, hey, is this accusation even valid? Instead, we join the mob so we don't get left out, or worse, become the next target. Emotions trump logic, and before you know it, the train is off the rails completely. But there's another insidious driver here, fanaticism, that sometimes we don't put together, or sometimes we don't join it to the witch hunt. But there is an element of fanaticism to it. Now, fanaticism doesn't necessarily mean you're a part of a radical cult, though sometimes it can. It could also be that blind loyalty to a cause, a leader, or an ideology that you won't question. Fanaticism means the emotion, the passion, has overshadowed your ability to think critically, to reason. And that makes for a perfect breeding ground for a witch hunt. As we'll see, fanaticism doesn't reason. Fanaticism reacts. It doesn't ask for evidence or weigh pros and cons. It charges forward, fueled by pure conviction, fueled by pure emotions, fueled by fanaticism. Let's take it back a little bit, because you want to know how this started. Let's take a leisurely stroll through some historical examples because we can learn a ton from seeing how people in the past fall prey to the same emotional traps we're still grappling with now, even in modern times. How is it that people still fall under the same circumstances? How is it that we keep falling in the same witch hunts? Let me take a small sip of my tea here, guys. Biblical example. The mobs around Jesus' crucifixion. We all know that scene. A crowd calling for Jesus to be crucified. There was an intense fear among political and religious leaders who saw his growing influence as a threat. Yes. Rather than reason, they whipped up the people's emotions, effectively turning them against him, against Jesus. Fanaticism took the wheel. After all, if you go against the crowd, you might be labeled a traitor yourself, right? Or the story of Susanna in the book of Daniel in chapter 13. Susanna was falsely accused by men of high standing in the community. The crowd was ready to execute her until Daniel intervened. It was the perfect example of how quickly a community can descend into condemnation on the word of so-called respectable accusers. Nobody dared ask, wait, where's the proof? Because they were already entrenched in the drama of it all. Now, let's move a little bit further to medieval witch hunts. Classic witch trials. Women, often older or marginalized, were singled out because maybe they acted strangely or had some knowledge of herbs or simply rubbed someone the wrong way. Then the rumor mill started. She put a curse on my crops. She looked at me and my child got sick. Or she's too different. Instead of reason, people let suspicion and hysteria run amok. Heretics and inquisitions, remember that era too? Step outside the church's dogma. You might as well pack your bags for a trial by inquisitors who weren't exactly known for the sense of fairness. Communities were terrified of harboring heretics because that might bring punishment from higher authorities. And let's stop there for a little. During that era, during the Inquisition era, people who question the dogma or question something part of the religious cultural life back then, were just accused of heresy. Just for questioning, not even going against, just questioning. There's a difference of questioning because I have a question, but I'm not against it, but I'm just questioning it. But even for questioning it, you were labeled a heretic. And once you were labeled a heretic, the whole community, even whole cities, were practically asking for you to be executed. Again, fear reigned supreme. And that fear fueled everything from false accusations to brutal torture methods. And now we all know about the colonial America Salem witch trials. This is a shining cautionary tale about how rumors can devour an entire community. Once the term witch was thrown around, the hysteria rose with shocking speed. People believed any bizarre accusation, but why? Because once an entire community is caught up in fear, rational voices get shouted out or shut down. And you had that extra spice of fanaticism, folks who believe wholeheartedly in the devil's presence and saw witches everywhere. Now, you might be wondering, what's changed? We're more educated now. We've got advanced technology. We're more open-minded. But are we really that different? No, I'm asking you, but are we really that different? Because how is it that we are still dealing with witch hunts? Witch hunts in the modern world. Fast forward to today. You might think, surely, we're not burning people at the stake anymore. We're not accusing neighbors of riding broomsticks under the moon. Well, yes, that's generally true. We're not leaving out the crucible But in many ways, our modern witch hunts can be just as vicious. Maybe even more so because they can spread across the planet in seconds through social media, through our new devices that are super fast and quick to transmit any posts. We've all seen it. A viral rumor hits Twitter, or now X, or any other platform of your choice. Someone is exposed for something, and within hours, they are the target of a global onslaught of rage. Maybe it's well deserved, but a lot of the times, the facts are fuzzy, or the story is more complicated than just 280 characters. Yet, the digital pitchfork comes out, and by the time the truth emerges, the damage has already been done. People lose jobs, reputations, and sometimes their mental health in the crossfire, or even imprisonment. In one of my previous episodes, you'll remember when we've dove into the cancel culture, corporate fear, or even in free speech. I shared stories of how entire careers were demolished in a flash, sometimes over misunderstandings or out of context statements. That's a modern witch hunt, if ever there was one. The mob decides that you're guilty. The mob decides the punishment. And nobody wants to step in and say, wait a minute, folks, is there another side to this? Because then they risk becoming the next target. We see it all the time in political culture. It's nothing new. Politics has always been a dirty game. But watch how quickly an opposing politician or public figure can be branded as a traitor or an extremist or danger to democracy, with the media piling on still more of the fear. The fervor is often emotional, not rational. We hate this person, so let's find or create reasons to take them down, or take him down, or take her down. Fanaticism thrives in the political culture, politically charged environments. People get so devoted to a candidate, a party, or an ideology that they refuse to see any complexity. It's black or white, us versus them. And if you question it, you're automatically them. Religious or cultural fanaticism. Even today, entire communities can flip into a witch hunt mode if someone questions the doctrines or traditions they hold sacred. I'm not knocking on anyone's faith, of course not. I'm pointing out that the second fanaticism takes center stage, rational conversations leaves the building. The crowd unites behind a high octane emotional wave, and reason is drowned out by how dare you question this, or it's our holy duty to eliminate that. This can be extremely dangerous, as we've seen in countless conflicts around the world. Yes, that's why we need to understand human nature, why we are prone to witch hunts. All right, so we've seen the sweeping timeline, right? From biblical times to medieval Europe to colonial America and our modern digital age. But why do we keep falling into the same trap? Why are we as humans so susceptible to picking up the proverbial forks, the pitchforks? Well, let's break it down. Tribal instinct. We humans evolved in groups, and we love to be in a group because it's in a group versus outer groups. The in group feels bonded by a common enemy. If someone is labeled a threat, be it a witch or a heretic or the wrong kind of person, it unifies everyone else. It's twisted, but it also fosters a sense of belonging. Also, emotional contagion. Feelings can spread like wildfire. If enough influential people, politicians, religious leaders, celebrities, or even social media influencers start pointing the fingers and saying, beware, there's a witch among us, a wave of fear, suspicion, and anger engulfs the community. Logic is slow, emotions move fast. That is emotional contagion. These are the elements, guys, that I'm naming that keep us prone to witch hunts. We've already mentioned tribal instinct, that we love to be part of a group. We want to be in a group. So tribal instinct is a breeding ground. Emotional contagion, it's also a breeding ground. Number 3 is fanaticism allure. When you're a fanatic, whether about religion, politics, or a cultural issue, you no longer see the gray areas because it's good versus evil, black versus white, saint versus witch. This simplification is tempting because it removes doubt and complexity. You don't have to wrestle with ethical nuances. You just find a target and lash out. That's fanaticism allure. Number 4, fear of becoming the next target. Perhaps the single most powerful reason people join in a witch hunt itself is self-preservation. If you stand up and defend the accused or even ask for questions, you become a suspect too. And I've said in earlier episodes on conformity under pressure, most folks would rather keep their head down than risk the backlash. Number 5, thrill and catharsis. Let's not underestimate the power of spectacle. There is a grim sort of entertainment factor in all this. There is entertainment in a witch hunt. People get a rush from the drama. They become holy warriors or vigilantes for a cause. It feels good to them to be on the right side, right? Punishing evil, real or perceived. This moral adrenaline rush can overshadow any desire to dig for the truth. It's fanaticism, folks. It's the igniter of a raging blaze. I really want to highlight the role of fanaticism here because that's the fuse that lights so many of these powder kicks. Fanaticism blinds. It doesn't pause to examine new evidence. It doesn't say, let's hold up and do some more fact checking. Fanaticism rides the wave of emotion, and just like a surfer who refuses to come back to shore, it can get caught in a riptide and be drowned. Think about the time when you saw someone so wrapped up in a cause that they refused to acknowledge any evidence that contradicted their views. They label anyone who disagrees a heretic or a fake believer or some other nasty term. It's no longer about building bridges or finding solutions. It's about purging the unbelievers. That's how a witch hunt gets started and keeps going. The ultimate risk? A community that stifles conversations and grows more insular, more paranoid, and more ready to strike. In fanatic mode, you're essentially functioning on autopilot for your feelings. You're not rationally evaluating the whys and the hows. You're laser focused on bringing down what you perceive as the enemy, which is precisely why fanaticism can erupt into a full-blown witch hunt at lightning speed. And that's how entire societies have fallen down this rabbit hole of destruction throughout history. Let's look at real life illustrations. Staying vigilant. Let's put some flesh on these bones with a few real scenarios. I want this to stay riveting, but also real because we can talk abstractly all day, but it's when we see ourselves in our communities in these examples that hit home. Have you thought about office politics or politics at work or where you work? Let me give you an example. We've all had that colleague who rubs certain people the wrong way. Perhaps they are outspoken in meetings or have an unconventional approach to the job. Well, one day, what if rumors start circulating? He's really working for the competition, right? Or she's out to sabotage the team. Without tangible evidence, the rumor takes on a life of its own. People who suspect it's nonsense still keep quiet because they don't want to be labeled as the troublemakers. Before you know it, HR is getting complaints, reputations are ruined, and no one is looking at the real problem. Maybe a toxic office culture or a petty manager steering the pot Sound like a mini witch hunt, right? Absolutely. Fanaticism can sprout anywhere, fueled by office gossip or even in fear of isolation. Another example is online fan communities. You ever been part of a fandom of a movie or a music or a sport, you name it, where criticizing the idol is basically heresy? If you voice a single concern, the pack descends on you. Or maybe someone in the fan community is accused of wrongdoing and instantly they're cast out, blocked, or doxxed. People get so invested emotionally, so fanatical in defending their idol that rational dialogue goes out the window. The flame war ignites, and there's no stopping it. Is that is that not a modern spin at the age-old witch hunt? Or what about in local community drama? This one's more low key. Let's say we have a low key neighbor, a family in the neighborhood is said to be weird, or maybe they just don't socialize much. A whisper campaign starts. They're doing something shady. Their kids are troublemakers, or I heard they're into some cultish stuff. Suddenly, the family is ostracized. No more invitations. No friendly greetings anymore. People cross the street to avoid them. And if anyone says, hey, let's actually talk to them before judging, the response is, oh, you're probably in on it too. That is fear plus fanaticism, an emotional spiral that overrides empathy and reason. But it's time to break the cycle. How to resist a witch hunt, folks? At this point, we've painted a pretty stark picture of human nature, but we're not destined to keep repeating the same patterns, folks. We can break the cycle. And one of my missions here on Straight TV is to empower you to see through the haze. So, how do you do it? Well, you pause and evaluate. When you first heard a damning accusation, take a beat. Ask yourself, what evidence do I have? Where am I getting this information? Resist to the urge to let your adrenaline or your devotion to a group or cause push you into an immediate condemnation. Ask critical questions. Who benefits? If someone is labeled the enemy, who stands to gain from that label? What's the source? Is it primary witness? Or is it hearsay? What if this were me? Empathy can be a powerful shield against a witch hunt. Also, encourage dialogue. One of the scariest things about a witch hunt is how it shuts down conversations. If you sense a mob forming, online or offline, speak up and suggest a space for evidence. People might call you crazy or naive, but sometimes that's all it takes to slow it down, to slow down the emotional tide. And also remember the past. History is loaded with cautionary tales of false accusations. Like how we remember how even in the Bible the accusations against the Lord. The history is full of that. Let's look back at it because there was unjust punishment and collective heresy. No, collective hysteria, sorry. Keep that in mind whenever you feel the pull to join the crowd. A big theme in many episodes we've had on Straight TV is that knowing history keeps us from repeating it, or at least it gives us a fighting chance. But also, we need to hold fanaticism at bay. Whether it's your political stance, your religion, or your favorite movie franchise, never lose sight of the fact that no idea or person or group is 100% flawless. The moment we start believing my side can do no wrong, we pave the way for irrational attacks on the other. Stay humble, stay curious, and keep your critical thinking engaged. Because we need to take these practical steps to stand up against fanaticism and a witch hunt. One question I get a lot when we talk about group thinking or cancel culture is, how do I stand up for someone if I'm terrified of being the next target? And that's a valid fear. But here's the thing, silence perpetuates the cycle. No mob or witch hunt continues unbaited without the complicity, active or passive, of the majority. If more people calmly but firmly question the accusations, the mob may lose some of its power. Strength in numbers. Find allies. If you sense that others are uncomfortable with the direct direction of the group, talk to them privately. A few voices of reason together are louder than one person shouting in the wind. Appeal to common values. Most groups, even fanatics, often believe they're acting on some moral principle or justice or purity or safety. Remind them of the values they claim to champion: fairness, compassion, truth. Use that as a bridge to question the overheated accusations. Also, seek evidence, not gossip. Put the conversation on a fact-based footing. If you move to debate, let's actually look at what's happened. You can disrupt the rumor-fueled fervor. Stay respectful and resolute. If you come across condescending or aggressive, the mob sees you as another enemy. Calm yourself. Engage in a respectful dialogue. Because respectful dialogue doesn't guarantee success, but it helps you stand your ground without feeding the fury or feeding the fear or feeding the anger. Bringing it all together, we've seen it. We can't stop it. We've gone from biblical times to medieval courts to social media. We've seen how fear, suspicion, and especially fanaticism can turn neighbor against neighbor, friend against friend, and group against individual. We've talked about how even those who see through the madness can feel forced to stand by silently for fear of being the next target. But guess what? We can do better. Look how some biblical stories ended. Daniel stepped in to save Susanna. Esther risked her life to call out injustice against her people, and she succeeded. In modern times, there are countless examples of whistleblowers or bystanders who refuse to let innocent people get crucified by rumor or half-truths. Yes, it takes courage. Yes, you might get flack or even threats, but that's the price of standing on principle, folks. And if more of us did it, these witch hunts would lose their sting over time. All right, we've journeyed through some serious terrain today. We've explored how witch hunts literally take hold, why they are so destructive, and what fuels them. We've seen how human nature, fear, and fanaticism create the perfect storm. And crucially, we've also seen that it's possible to stand against that storm if we are armed with knowledge and a willingness to ask questions and the courage to speak up and think and feel and live with reason, even when it's unpopular. I hope this episode has fired you up to reflect on the small ways we can all be complicit in modern day witch hunts. Whether that's through piling on social media outrage without checking the facts, or staying silent when a coworker or neighbor is unfairly targeted. Because remember, the next victim could be you or someone you care about. We're all potential witches here in the eyes of a fearful or fanatical crowd. If you want to dig deeper, definitely re-listen to our earlier episodes on mob mentality, emotional contagion, and the culture of outrage. They'll give you more context and tools to see these phenomena for what they are and hopefully help you steer clear of them. In the meantime, I want you to stay vigilant, stay reasonable, and let reason, logic, drive your life, not fanatical emotions. Till the next time, folks.